Jamal walks down the bustling city street, his backpack slung over one shoulder. The cold afternoon air bites at his skin, and he clutches his packed lunch tightly, his only meal for the day. He passes by a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk, his face weathered and tired. The man's clothes are ragged, and he's holding out his hands, a silent plea for help. As Jamal walks past, he hears a faint, raspy voice. Homeless man, whispering, "Sir, please, just a little food." Jamal pauses for a moment. He glances at his lunch, his stomach growls, reminding him how hungry he is. He looks back at the man, whose eyes are tired but filled with hope. Despite his own hunger, Jamal can't ignore the man's need. With a soft sigh, Jamal kneels down and unwraps his sandwich. He places it in the homeless man's hands, along with the apple and his juice box. Jamal, soft smile. "Here, man. You need this more than I do." The homeless man's eyes well up with tears as he looks up at Jamal. Homeless man, whispering, "Thank you. No one's helped me in days." Jamal pats the man's shoulder and stands up. He looks down at him one more time, then walks away, stomach still aching from hunger. Unbeknownst to him, this small act of kindness is about to change his life in ways he can't imagine. As Jamal walks off, he hears the man's quiet, grateful "thank you" fade into the busy noise of the street. The world continues around him, but for just a moment, everything feels right. Jamal walks into school the next day, his stomach still growling from the lack of food. He hasn't eaten since he gave his lunch to the homeless man. The hallway is bustling with students, but he feels detached, focusing solely on his thoughts. He enters the classroom, sits at his desk, and pulls out his books, trying to distract himself from the emptiness he feels. His friends, Maya and Tyler, notice he's not his usual self. They're sitting next to him, chatting and laughing, but something's off. Maya, concerned. "Jay, where's your food? You're usually always eating." Jamal looks up at her, a small, almost guilty smile on his face. Jamal, shrugging, "I wasn't that hungry." Maya raises an eyebrow, clearly not buying it, but she doesn't push further. Tyler just shrugs and continues eating his own lunch. Jamal tries to focus on the lesson, but his mind keeps drifting back to the previous day, how he helped the homeless man. Later, during lunch, he sits at his usual spot alone. The cafeteria is filled with noise, laughter, clattering trays, and the hum of conversation. But Jamal remains quiet, staring at the table. He didn't want to tell Maya that he gave his lunch away, but he feels a twinge of regret now. Maybe he should have kept it for himself. But then again, the memory of the homeless man's grateful smile keeps him grounded. He doesn't regret helping, even if it cost him a meal. At home that night, Jamal tries not to show how hard things are. His mother, a single parent working long hours at a local diner, is sitting at the kitchen table, counting the last few crumpled dollar bills she has left. She looks up as Jamal enters the room. "Mom," sad smile. "Hold on a little longer, baby. I'm trying to get more hours at work. We'll be all right, I promise." Jamal nods, his heart heavy. He wants to help, but he doesn't want to add more worry to his mother's already full plate. He doesn't tell her about the lunch he gave away or the fact that he's been skipping meals. Instead, he simply forces a smile. Jamal, softly, "I'm good, Mom." "Really?" She smiles back at him, but the weariness in her eyes speaks volumes. Jamal knows she's been working overtime to keep them afloat, but things have been tight lately. The thought of not knowing where their next meal will come from scares him, but he keeps it to himself. Meanwhile, outside, under a dim street lamp, the homeless man sits on the curb. He carefully unwraps the sandwich, holding it in his trembling hands. His eyes well with tears as he remembers the young boy who offered him food with no hesitation. Homeless man, murmuring, "No one's helped me in years, but that kid was different." The man takes a bite of the sandwich, savoring the simple meal. For the first time in a long time, he feels seen. He hadn't expected much, but the kindness from Jamal, someone with so little, fills him with hope. He hadn't believed there was good left in the world, but Jamal's selflessness proved him wrong. He looks up at the stars, whispering a quiet prayer of thanks. In the warm, quiet home where Jamal sits, his mind drifts back to the homeless man. For a brief moment, he imagines what it would be like if his family didn't have to struggle, if his mother didn't have to work so hard. He hopes for a better life, not just for himself, but for others like the homeless man who live on the margins. He smiles to himself, though he feels the weight of hunger creeping in. Maybe one day, things will be different. But for now, he will continue to give, because kindness is all he has to offer. Jamal stands frozen in the office, his heart racing as the man in the expensive suit steps forward, his eyes filled with a deep, unspoken gratitude. The man smiles warmly, but it's clear that there's something important happening here, something Jamal has yet to fully understand. Man, smiling. You don't recognize me, do you? Jamal tilts his head, his mind racing as he tries to place the face. His stomach twists in confusion, but then it hits him like a thunderclap. The man standing before him, now in a sharp suit, is the same homeless man he helped the previous day. The same man who had been sitting on the curb, hungry and alone. Jamal, shocked. Wait, you? The man nods, his smile growing softer. His once ragged appearance is gone, replaced with a polished, well-groomed figure that looks entirely out of place in the small school office. Man, with a chuckle. Yes, it's me. You helped me yesterday. Gave me your lunch when I was starving. I've been trying to track you down ever since. Jamal can barely process the situation. His eyes flicker from the man's face to his expensive suit, then back to the man's face, as if searching for some explanation. Jamal, in disbelief. But how? You were just... Man, cutting him off. I know what you must be thinking. Let me explain. I wasn't always like that, but I've fallen on hard times. Yesterday, when you gave me your food, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. You didn't just give me a meal, Jamal. You gave me something I hadn't had in years, dignity and hope. I couldn't forget what you did for me, so I wanted to meet you. The room feels smaller now, Jamal trying to process what he's hearing. This man, who he had helped out of pure kindness, is not just a homeless person. He's someone with resources, someone who could change his life forever. Principal, interrupting gently. Jamal, this is Mr. Charles. He's the CEO of a successful tech company. He's been doing charity work, helping people who've fallen on hard times. Jamal's eyes widen as he looks back at Mr. Charles, now fully understanding the weight of the situation. This man wasn't just some stranger. He was an incredibly successful entrepreneur, a man who didn't have to help people like him, but who chose to. Mr. Charles steps forward, extending his hand toward Jamal, who takes it, still in shock. Mr. Charles, I've seen a lot in my life, Jamal. But what you did for me yesterday, no one has ever shown me that kind of kindness before. I want to repay you for that. You have an incredible heart. Jamal stands there, processing the words. He feels a lump form in his throat, not because he's uncomfortable, but because something deep inside him feels like this moment could be the beginning of something huge. Mr. Charles, I've arranged for you to receive a scholarship. You'll have everything you need to go to any college you want. I've been in touch with the best universities, and they're all waiting to hear from you. Jamal's head spins. A scholarship? A free ride to college? It feels like a dream, something he never thought possible for someone like him. Jamal, stumbling over his words. Wait, what? You're serious? Mr. Charles laughs softly. Mr. Charles. Absolutely. I see a lot of potential in you, Jamal. You've got more than just smarts. You've got character. and that's something I value above all else. Jamal looks at Mr. Charles, the man who had been homeless just 1 day ago, and now stands before him as someone with power, influence, and the ability to change lives. This man, who he had thought of as someone to pity, is now offering him a lifeline. Jamal, shaking his head. I don't know what to say. This is incredible. Mr. Charles smiles warmly. Mr. Charles, you don't have to say anything, Jamal. Just know that what you did for me was a reminder of what truly matters in this world: kindness. And I believe you have a bright future ahead of you. Jamal can barely process it all. His mind races as he tries to wrap his head around the idea that one simple act of kindness, one moment of selflessness, could change his entire future. And yet, here it is, unfolding in front of him. Principal, smiling. Jamal, you've made us all proud. This is your chance to shine. Jamal nods, his heart swelling with gratitude, but also a sense of responsibility. He can't let this opportunity go to waste. He looks at Mr. Charles, then back at the principal. Jamal, quietly. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Charles gives him an encouraging nod. Mr. Charles, the pleasure is mine. Let's get you on the path to success. As Jamal stands in the office, he can't help but feel overwhelmed by the turn of events. What started as a small act of kindness has turned into something that will shape his entire future. And as he walks out of the office with Mr. Charles, he can't help but feel like he's finally stepped into the life he's always dreamed of, one that was just waiting for him to believe in himself. Jamal stands there, staring at the check in his hands. His mind is spinning, unable to process the reality of what's happening. $50,000? This can't be real. Jamal, shaking his head in disbelief. I don't know what to say. Robert Whitmore, the man who had once been at the top of the business world, watches Jamal with a kind smile, his eyes filled with respect. Robert, softly. You don't have to say anything, Jamal. You've already said more than enough by helping me. You've proven what's most important in this world: compassion and kindness. When the world looked away from me, you reached out. Jamal glances down at the check, the weight of it sinking in. He's always worked hard for everything he's had, but this is more than he could ever have dreamed of. It's a lifeline, an opportunity to change the trajectory of his life and make something more of himself, a chance to prove to everyone that he's not just another statistic. Jamal, voice shaking. I can't accept this. This is too much. Robert places a hand on Jamal's shoulder, his touch firm yet comforting. Robert, gently. You don't understand, do you? I've spent years with nothing, trying to survive day by day. But it was that simple act of kindness, something most people would never do, that has taught me more than any amount of money ever could. You gave me something no one else did: hope. Jamal looks up at Robert, the gravity of his words sinking in. He thinks back to the moment when he gave Robert the sandwich, not knowing who the man was or what his situation might be. Jamal had just seen a person in need. He never thought there would be any reward. And yet, here he stands, holding a check that could change everything. Jamal, quietly. But how do I even begin to repay you? Robert smiles warmly. Robert, you don't have to repay me, son. What you did for me was more than enough. I want you to take this money and use it for your future. Invest in your education, in your dreams. I believe in you, Jamal. You've got a bright future ahead, and I want to help you get there. Jamal's throat tightens as tears well up in his eyes. This is more than he could ever have hoped for, more than he could ever have imagined. His life, which had been filled with struggles and uncertainty, is suddenly opening up in ways he never thought possible. He looks at Robert with gratitude, his voice barely above a whisper. Jamal, thank you. Thank you so much. I'll make sure it counts. I promise. Robert pats Jamal's back and nods approvingly. Robert, I know you will. Just don't forget, Jamal. No matter where life takes you, always stay true to who you are. Keep helping others when you can. That's the real measure of success. Jamal smiles, feeling the weight of his words. He knows that this isn't just about the money, it's about the impact he can make on the world. It's about using his opportunities not just for his own success, but for the success of others as well. As they part ways, Robert's words stay with Jamal, resonating deep in his heart. For the first time in a long time, he feels hopeful about his future. With the help of this unexpected gift, he knows he can overcome any obstacle. He looks at the check once more and slips it into his pocket, ready to take the first step toward his dreams. Jamal. This is just the beginning. Jamal rushes into the small apartment, his heart racing. He can barely contain his excitement. His mother, sitting at the kitchen table and sorting through bills, looks up, startled by the sound of his voice. Jamal. Mom! M-O-M. She jumps up, a look of concern on her face. Mom, worried. Baby, what's wrong? Without saying a word, Jamal pulls out the check and hands it to her. Her eyes widen as she sees the amount, her hands shaking as she reads it. She looks up at him, speechless, then back at the check. Mom, whispering, Is this real? Tears well up in her eyes and she wraps Jamal in a tight hug. The weight of their struggles suddenly feels lighter, their dreams more attainable. Mom, tears streaming down her face. Oh, my sweet boy, your kindness came back to you. This is a miracle. Jamal holds his mom tighter, a lump forming in his throat. This moment, this small act of kindness, had changed their lives forever. He never expected anything in return. He just wanted to help. And now he was holding a symbol of hope for his future, and for his mother's future, too. The scene fades, and the next morning, Jamal walks into school, head held high, his confidence glowing. The weight he had been carrying for so long feels a little lighter. As he enters the building, his friend Maya spots him from across the hallway. She breaks into a grin when she sees the change in Jamal's demeanor. Maya, teasing. So, you're rich now? Jamal chuckles, his smile growing wider. He shakes his head, looking at Maya with a sense of humility. Jamal, smiling. I'm blessed. But the real lesson? Always be kind. You never know who's watching. Maya laughs, impressed by Jamal's newfound wisdom. She pats him on the back as they walk down the hallway together. Jamal's mind drifts to the future. He's come so far, and now, with new opportunities ahead, he's more determined than ever to make the most of them. The camera slowly pans out as Jamal walks toward his future, a future filled with promise. He walks with purpose, his steps confident. He knows that kindness has a way of coming back when you least expect it. And now, with the world open to him, he's ready to take on whatever comes next. His journey is just beginning.